I remember when I was growing up that there were lots of discount stores. There were the really cheap ones like John's Bargain Stores, and then there were Corvettes and Klein's in New York City. They're all out of business.
Oh, right. The smaller discounters obviously haven't been able to keep pace with the major players in the market. That would be most obviously Walmart and Target, and perhaps less obviously to some of your listeners, IKEA and the other big box stores, Home Depot.
We have them in New York, IKEA.
And do you
Depot,
now?
yeah,
Of course.
Lowe's.
Yeah. So it's bigger, and more consolidation, even in the discount sector.
So did Walmart change that whole thing?
Well, it certainly did a great job of using technology to increase supply chain efficiencies, and also because they're so big, they're the largest private employer in the United States by a good margin. Because they're so big, they exert enormous influence, not just here, of course, but on suppliers all over the world to keep the prices really low. The whole notion of sale didn't even get a grip, really, in a major way until, again, the turn of the last century, when the invention of the price tag, a guy named John Wanamaker, who some of your listeners may have heard of, a haberdasher out of Philadelphia.
And we had a Wanamaker's down in the Village here in New York.
So he did have a big footprint, and he got the whole notion of the yearly sale started. It's a fascinating story about how he invented the price tag. So he established fixed prices, which really weren't popular before he had a stand in it, and then created the so-called sales, and always for good reasons in the case of Wanamaker.
Aren't there outlet malls in other countries? Why do you call them a deeply American institution?
As I point out in the book, there are outlet malls everywhere, but they originated in the United States, and they are a deeply American institution. Most of the outlet malls around the world, and I have been to them in various places around the world, are modeled after the American idea.
How many do we have now?
I don't have the exact figures. They took a little bit of a downturn as most businesses did in the last year or two, but they, as you mentioned earlier, they grew by leaps and bounds from the 1970s onward.
And I gather consumers spend more money at outlet malls than they do at traditional retail malls.
Yeah, that really, really freaked me out. I just was totally amazed by this, that we spend 80% more when we shop at an outlet mall than we do in a traditional mall. And so I thought, well, I guess when you go to the outlet mall, you kind of stock up on stuff, underwear, pottery, whatever. But that's not really true. There's no evidence to support that. The idea that it's an outlet mall, the idea that these are brand name products being sold at what we are told is a discount, just seems to lower our defenses in terms of spending, and we spend much more at an outlet mall than we would at a regional mall.
Now, you said we're told that we're buying them at a discount.
Yes, and we are not always buying them at a discount. In the case of the outlet mall, for example, much of the merchandise sold at outlet malls is not available in the full-price malls. So one of the examples I use in the book is that of Coach bags. And Coach bags, which is we all know is a venerable brand, linked to quality. The bags that are sold in outlet stores are not necessarily the same bags that are sold in full-price stores.
Are they labeled differently?
They are in a very discreet way, and I didn't know this myself. I went to a luxury outlet mall in Las Vegas, and I did it because I thought the gambling metaphor was so apt, and it turned out to be. I went in the company of a professor of business who was an expert on marketing and retail, and she pointed out to me that at the Coach bag outlet, for example, there's a small F on much of the merchandise, which indicated to her that these actually were manufactured for the factory outlet. And she pointed out to me how they were not the same kind of bag that you would associate with a Coach bag. So you've got this wonderful brand and a low price, and this is a double whammy for the consumer.
Now, Coach complains, like many of the other quality manufacturers, about knockoffs, about counterfeiters. Aren't they, in a sense, counterfeiting their own product then?
They are. It's very, very fascinating. They are diluting their brand. They are willing to dilute their brand. And I make the point that this has become more and more common as retailers become sucked into this vortex of discounting. They feel in the long run this is going to profit them. But of course, it's a complete distortion of what the original factory store was all about, and certainly what the original Coach factory store was all about.
I always thought that these stores were meant to sell the things that didn't sell over the last year or so as they come in with new products, or something that would be just slightly defective, but I would never notice.
Absolutely right. And I think we all make that assumption. I certainly made that assumption before I did the book. And the gentleman who founded Coach Bags, who I was lucky enough to interview, he no longer is associated with them, told me that his original discount store, his original outlet, was in fact slightly defective, real Coach bags that he sold. His children set up the store, which was very, very successful and rightfully so.